The 45 different countries across 3 continents. These are the victims of the abandoned Black Sea grain deal. Now, Russia waited till the very end of the deadline and then decided to pull the plug. Moscow has said that it has its own reasons. However, this was a crucial deal not just for Ukraine, but for the entire world economy. Let's tell you how. Now, Ukraine and Russia are 2 of the world's largest agricultural producers. So a war between the 2 crucial exporters of food grain. We're talking about food grain here. This means bad news for the world economy. The food prices have already shot up in countries such as Pakistan, Bangladesh, Kenya and Iraq in the last 17 months. Mediators such as Turkey and Germany have been holding on to their ropes. Now remember, the United Nations and Turkey had played a key role in getting Russia to the negotiating table. They brought Russia on the same page, and this had helped curb food inflation. Now, all the countries that you're looking at, highlighted on your screens, have benefited directly from this deal. Since Russia had abandoned and then rejoined the deal multiple times, nearly about 33 million metric tons of food grain had been exported via the Black Sea route, due to this initiative having been brokered about a year ago. Now, the majority of the grain is wheat and corn. It accounted for nearly about 16.9 million tons and about 8.91 million tons respectively. The exports also included stuff such as barley, rapeseed, soybeans and sunflower oil. So who is benefiting out of this? Now, on the surface, absolutely no one's benefits out of this. But this is Russia attempting to use food grain as a weapon of war. The Kremlin, for its part, has categorically said that halting of this deal is in no way related to the attack on the Crimean bridge. But one can put 2 and 2 together here. The decision has come just hours after the blast that damaged the Kerch bridge. The Western analysts say that Russia is using grain as a weapon of war and ammunition. And this image stands testament to that. It's a Russian missile that hit a grain depot in Ukraine. So not only has it now abandoned the plan to export the grain, it is also destroying the source. But again, this is war. And everything here has 2 sides to it. Miles away from the missiles and the blame game, the citizens of the poorer nations will suffer. The United Nations is already struggling with its food programs in Africa. So there is no grain and no money and just people who are likely to go hungry. And this is not going to affect just nations in Africa or Asia. This is food inflation that will affect Europe and the Americas as well. And to give us more perspective into this, we're being joined by Mr. Joachim Bitterlich, former German ambassador to NATO and also the former European diplomatic and security advisor, is joining us live on this broadcast. Mr. Bitterlich, this is a big decision that has been taken by the Russians. They've pulled the plug on the Black Sea grain deal. The consequences of this will be immediate. Is the world prepared for this?
Well, the Russians do not use for the first time food as a weapon of war. Not for the first time, it's now the second or the third time. And the Russians want to reach, let's say, different goals through this. But I think if the Western world would give in on these goals, for example, on the admission again of the Russian agricultural bank into the SWIFT system, the Russians will add other demands. And you mentioned the Kerch bridge, you mentioned the bombing on both sides. It's what I call, it's war. It's trying to use food as a means of war. And if you see that out of the 33 million tons that have been exported from Ukraine, from the 3 harbors in Ukraine last year, in the last 12 months, the majority is going towards Northern Africa and to Asia. And therefore, I think it's understandable to some extent, but limited. And therefore, Russians should give in and should give up this, let's say, using food as a means of war.
Absolutely. Now, you did make the point that a lot of this food grain goes to North Africa and Asia, but what it also does is, because food grain is not flowing through the Black Sea channel, it means that there is going to be a shortage of food grains across the world which will result in food prices going up, not just in Africa and Asia, but also across Europe and also in the Americas.
But please remember, just the price of wheat has been $260 per ton before the war. And last year it went up to $400 per ton. And please imagine this price, let's say, for poorer countries in Africa or in Asia. And who will really suffer from this new Russian blackmailing?
Right. Now, as you mentioned, the Russians have been threatening to do this. They've pulled the plug now. Earlier, when they had wanted to, walk out of this Black Sea grain deal, the United Nations and countries such as Turkey and Germany had played a crucial part in getting Russia to the negotiating table. What do you think the West can in fact now do to try and get Russia back to the negotiating table so that they can allow a safe passage, they can guarantee a safe passage for ships that carry grain out of the Black Sea?
It's interesting. The main measure the Russians had been asking for is the reintegration into the Western banking system, SWIFT, of a Russian agricultural bank. And I think the Western world, the European Union, has given hints towards the Russians they would be ready to do so. If it's so, okay for me. But I think the Russians are looking, let's say, for even, they have another reasoning, telling to the United Nations and to the Europeans, dear friends, the main goal of these exportations is not Africa, is not the poorer world, but are even Western countries. Especially Turkey is profiting from it, Romania is profiting, Spain is profiting.
Right.
These are Poland, Germany not at all. But the main part, if my calculations are right, about 60% is going towards to the developing countries. And this is for me the key.
All right.
The Russians should agree in.
Absolutely indeed. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bitterlich, for joining us and getting us all those insights there.
With pleasure, as always.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.